On the edge of the Nile, not far from Aswan, stands a temple like no other in Egypt. A sanctuary split in two, where Horus the falcon god shared the same roof as Sobek the crocodile. Its walls are doubled, its rituals divided, and in its shadow, hundreds of crocodile mummies were buried. Why would the ancients build such a place? And what secrets can it reveal about their world? Let me show you. Before we set foot in Kom Ombo, we're going to make another stop first. I want to take you into the Nubia Museum to conclude our visit to Aswan, and to give us the long view of Nubia's history, and the world in which Kom Ombo was born. The Nubia Museum opened in 1997, built in collaboration with UNESCO as part of the international campaign to preserve Nubian monuments threatened by the Aswan High Dam. Entry costs around 300 Egyptian pounds, which is a little over $6 in US money. The museum has 3 floors of exhibits: a library, lecture halls, workshops, and gardens. In the gardens outside, statues of kings and obelisks line a symbolic waterway, flowing into a cave adorned with ancient rock carvings. Among the items, there's something even older than the pharaohs. These are the standing stones of Ptolemaic, carried here from the desert west of Abu Simbel. I had always thought the stones of the circle were larger, but actually they're rather small. Ptolemaic was once a seasonal lake bed in the Sahara, and around 7,000 years ago, it became a gathering place for pastoral peoples, some of the earliest cattle herders in the Nile Valley. Certain stones they raised appear to align with the rising of the sun at the summer solstice, suggesting that these early Nubians were already observing the heavens to mark seasonal change.
So here we have a granite stela from the 25th dynasty. Yes, they're still carving granite in the 25th dynasty of Egypt. This is the Kushite dynasty when they were ruling over Egypt. And this is King Horsiotef, a lesser known king, ruled around 400 BCE or so. And he's represented up at the top.
The king labeled Horsiotef, more commonly you'll see his name as Harsiotef, ruled Nubia, not Egypt. He was descended from the kings of Dynasty 25, but technically, after the dynasty lost control of Egypt, we don't customarily call it Dynasty 25 anymore. But the museum does.
Amun, and then the king's got to be here, right? He looks very Nubian. Yeah, there's a priest with a rattle here, both sides, yeah. So it's a pretty lengthy inscription. He must have had something important to say.
The stela from his 33rd regnal year recounts the battles he won against a neighboring polity to the east. Interesting bit of trivia, he calls that polity Habasa, and it is believed to be the source of the later name Abyssinia.
Look at this precision stone bowl. It's made of basalt, very hard stone. But it's from the Roman period. It just goes to show that, yeah, they were still making precision stone objects in the Roman period out of hard stone.
Inside, we begin in the lower gallery with Nubia's deepest past. Display cases hold stone tools more than 20,000 years old.
We're here in the prehistoric section and looking at the Nakata 1 culture. This is 4,500 to 4,000 BCE or so. Very early, this is pre-dynastic, before the first dynasty. All right, and you'll often see people pointing to this ostrich egg. Ostrich eggs were used in ceremonies. And you can see those 3 triangles on it with the lines across. Some of those who are trying to prove that the Great Pyramid is thousands of years older than what the mainstream archaeologists say will point to this egg and say, look, we have representations of the Giza pyramids right next to the Nile River there, and they're the 3R, so it must have existed this far back. But when comparing these eggs to other works of art from the same period, we will find that these sorts of representations seem to always represent mountains or something like that. So they're probably just mountains. And the fact that they're all the same size kind of works against the whole idea that they're the pyramids of Giza, which are not the same size. These are cool too. This is from the Nakata 2 period. And we have images on these 2 pots of boats. Yeah, these are river boats from this period. We're talking about 6,000 years ago. And we don't, of course, have those boats anymore. There's no archaeological remains of those boats, but they are portrayed on the vases here, which gives us an idea of how they were structured.
The museum covers the rise of farming around 3500 BCE with the A group culture, the earliest farmers and traders of Lower Nubia. Their painted pottery and carnelian beads show links to Egypt, but also a distinct Nubian identity. Next come the C group communities of Lower Nubia, herders and farmers who built small stone villages. Beside them are the artifacts of the great Kerma kingdom of Upper Nubia. These are from between 2500 and 1500 BCE, and the exhibits make clear Nubia was not a backwater, but a civilization in its own right. Here the museum also explains who the Nubians were, not a single ethnicity, but a mosaic of peoples who lived along this stretch of the Nile for millennia. If you recall, in an earlier episode this season, we visited the tombs of the nobles at Kubet al-Hawa. Well, many of the artifacts that were recovered from those tombs are here at the Nubia Museum.
Middle Kingdom bronze dagger. Look at that thing. That is cool. 12th dynasty, belonging to the priest Kema from his tomb. Wooden handle, I think, but bronze. The rest is bronze. Is that? No, the whole thing looks bronze, maybe. But that is in great condition.
It is in excellent condition, yeah.
Look at that. This is 12th dynasty, so we're looking at between the 1900 and 1700 BCE. The coffin texts are like the next stage in development after the pyramid texts and before the Book of the Dead. This is a priest's wife. So it's great to see things from the place we went, right? They're all empty now, but this is what came out of them.
Did you see the golden canoe?
So here's the governor of Aswan, of Elephantina, during the 12th dynasty, known as Hekaib, and he is actually interred in the tombs of the nobles. But here we have an actual statue of him made out of granite from the 12th dynasty. Wait a minute, they were carving granite after the Old Kingdom in the 12th dynasty? Yes, they were. Oh, the fortress of Buhan. Yeah, this is not far from Abu Simbel. There's not much left of it now, but it would have been cool to kind of see this too, but I don't even know if it's possible. That's what I was wondering. I know Buhan survived up until the dam, but I think it might be underwater now. But I think there are some, they're not in great condition, but you'll see like the bottoms of the walls and things like that.
Among the highlights here are models and fragments of temples saved from the waters: Abu Simbel, Philae, Kalabsha, Amada, Wadi es-Sebua. Together they form a miniature landscape of Nubia before the flood. By 1500 BCE, the armies of the New Kingdom swept into Nubia, and Kerma fell. Egypt annexed the region. The museum displays statues of Egyptian pharaohs, inscribed stelae, and architectural fragments marking this period of domination.
Another viceroy. Or the same one.
Oh, another viceroy of Kush during the reign of Thutmose III. So many people talk about how, they stopped really carving granite, of such high quality in the Old Kingdom, and they never went back to it. We've seen granite, beautifully sculpted granite from the Middle Kingdom, from the New Kingdom. It's all the way through. We're in the granite capital of the world here.
Moving forward, the gallery highlights the dramatic reversal, the rise of the kingdom of Kush around the 8th century BCE. From Napata and later Meroe, Nubian kings not only reclaimed their homeland, but conquered Egypt.
Horamakhet, son of Shabak.
What a beautiful statue.
Kushite dynasty.
And his feet never
Quartzite.
Here.
Quartzite's very hard stone. He was the high priest of Amun. You can see his Nubian features.
Egypt. For nearly a century, the Nubians ruled as Egypt's 25th dynasty. Statues of Kushite rulers stand here, their features broad-nosed and strong-jawed, wearing the double crown of Egypt.
Shabatka. Oh, and Taharqa. We got to get Taharqa. Granite heads. Both granite heads. Oh, the dream stela. This is the famous dream stela.
This is it? Let's see.
This is an important historical document. The granite stela of Tutankhamun, known as the dream stela, because it talks about King Tutankhamun's dream. He was a Kushite ruler of the 25th dynasty. Egypt had been lost to the Assyrians, and the Kushites had been pushed back to Napata. The gods sent him a dream that he would unify Egypt once more. So this is like the motivation for him to go on to this military campaign to get Egypt back. And Tutankhamun did have a successful foray northward into Egypt, was able to get as far as Thebes, and held it for a short time, but unfortunately for him, the Assyrians ended up pushing him back out again, and that'll be the last time that the Kushites controlled any part of Egypt. They will continue to rule, however, down there in Napata. Here we have a granite stela from the 6th century BCE. Wait, they were making granite stelas in the 6th century BCE still? Of course they were. This is from the 25th, or Kushite dynasty, and we have the actual commemoration of the coronation of King Aspalta. And you can see him being crowned. And over here on the left, we were trying to figure out who this was, but this is the mother of the king. Her name is Nasalsa. What is Aspalta known for? Well, the most important, I guess, event that occurred during his reign is he moved the capital of Kush from Napata to Meroe. And from that point forward, Meroe is going to be the center of the government.
And here we see him crowned by Amun-Ra in his ram-headed form. The stela tells us that Aspalta was elected by committee, which sets Nubian custom apart from that of Egypt. The next displays bring us into the classical age. The capital shifted to Meroe, whose pyramids still dot the Sudanese desert. Here we see painted ceramics, iron tools, jewelry, and models of Meroitic temples. Meroe was a center of iron smelting and long-distance trade, flourishing even as Rome ruled Egypt. By the 6th century CE, Nubia embraced Christianity. Crosses carved on stone, fragments of frescoes, and Coptic manuscripts testify to its churches and bishops. Leaving the Nubia Museum, we turned once more to the river itself, the same Nile that has always bound Egypt and Nubia together. And this time, we traveled in style. We boarded a dahabeah, one of the traditional sailboats of Egypt. Actually, our group was large enough that we needed 2 of them. They were called the Hadil and the Veda. Tina and I stayed on the Hadil. Life on board was a pleasure. Comfortable cabins, shaded decks, and buffet meals that appeared whenever we got hungry.
In guava. Pomegranate seeds and guava.
Spreads of fragrant Egyptian dishes, breads warm from the oven, and endless cups of tea as the river slipped past. Sailing northward, we were exposed to the timeless beauty of the Nile from a completely new vantage point. Palm groves and golden fields, fishermen casting their nets, and villages little changed for centuries. It was easy to imagine the river as the ancients knew it. Kom Ombo lies about 45 kilometers north of Aswan, on a bend of the Nile where the river broadens and curves west. The very name Kom Ombo comes from the ancient Egyptian word, nubt, or nebet, meaning the golden one, perhaps reflecting its role as a starting point for gold mining expeditions into Nubia and the eastern desert. In later Greek and Roman times, it was called Ombos or Ambos, and in Coptic Imbu, the Arabic name Kom Ombo simply means Hill of Umbu. Today we think of it as mainly a temple, but there was an actual town here. The site has a long history. Archaeological surveys in the Kom Ombo Basin have found traces of settlement going way back to the late Paleolithic period. But by the Old Kingdom at the latest, it was already a significant establishment. In the first intermediate period, Nubt was caught in the turbulence of civil war. Antiquity, the powerful nomarch of Moala, claimed in his tomb inscriptions that he brought life to Nubt during a time of famine. But the archaeology shows that part of the town was heavily burnt, perhaps destroyed during political conflict at the dawn of the Middle Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom brought modest revival, and inscriptions of Senusret I show that Sobek, the crocodile god, so central to the city's later fame, was already being worshipped here. And then as the sun dipped low, ancient columns appeared, Kom Ombo, rising on a high curve of the Nile, its facade catching the evening light. Stepping ashore, we climb toward the forecourt of the temple. The great pylon that once fronted the complex is gone, but the symmetry is still striking.
This temple here is divided into two parts. There's this side and this side, and the unusual thing about its design is that this side is dedicated to one triad of gods and this side to another triad of gods. So on this side of the temple, we have a dedication to the triad of gods consisting of Sobek, the crocodile god, we have Hathor, and we have Khonsu, the moon god. Then over here, we have got Haroiris, that's what the Greeks called him, Harwer, the adult Horus, an obscure version of Hathor called Ta Senet Nefret, and then we have this god known as Panebtawi, the Lord of the Two Lands.
By the New Kingdom, the cult of Sobek was firmly established, and that is when the original version of this temple appears to have been constructed. But that temple was replaced by the one we see today. It's from the Ptolemaic period, when the Macedonians ruled the country. Ombos, as it was then called, was a nome capital of the same name, an administrative center with important trade routes linking the Nile to the Red Sea. Maybe this is why they decided to build a new, more magnificent temple.
That's Sobek, the crocodile god. The crocodile god Sobek was, of course, the god of the Nile, very important in this region. And the people of Ombos were really well known for their love of Sobek. The interesting thing is that there's a story about their rivalry with Dendera up north and how they hated each other's guts. And I think it has to do with the fact that the people of Dendera were crocodile hunters. At least that's what our Roman writer Juvenal says. He writes in one of his works that he witnessed a brawl between the people of Ombos and the people of Dendera, and that one guy from Ombos, he didn't do so well in the fight, and the people of Dendera ended up killing him and eating him. Don't know if it's true, but he says he was there.
Coins from the Ombite nome depicted the crocodile and Sobek's image. Under Ptolemy VI Philometor, around 180 BCE, construction began on this unique monument, a double temple with perfectly symmetrical halves. 2 doorways, 2 hypostyle halls, 2 sanctuaries, everything doubled, so that each god and his divine family had equal honor. While there are 3 gods on each side that were honored here, Sobek really was the dominant deity on one side, and Harwer, Horus the Elder, on the other. Some have supposed that we have 2 families here. In other words, Sobek and Hathor were married, and Khonsu was their son, and then Harwer, Tasenet Nefret, and Panebtawi were also a family. But this idea is contradicted by ancient texts. Still, we must keep in mind that the myths of the gods and goddesses of Egypt changed to accommodate new thoughts and different needs, and as time went on, the gods were reinvented to match the thoughts and beliefs of the time. In ancient times, the temple had a great pylon, which is now gone, that led into a colonnaded court. Then past the court, you walked either through the left door or the right, depending on who you were worshipping at the time, into a large hypostyle hall. A smaller hypostyle hall lay through the next 2 doors, followed by 3 vestibules, and past the vestibules were the sanctuaries of Sobek and Harwer. Most of the decoration here was completed under Ptolemy XII, the father of Cleopatra VII, the famous one. Later rulers kept adding to the site. Ptolemy XIII, Cleopatra's little brother, built the inner and outer hypostyle halls, and even in the Roman period, the temple was still being modified. Emperors from Augustus to Caracalla left their mark, with the last known work carried out under Macrinus in 217 CE. Even in recent years, Kom Ombo has continued to surprise archaeologists. In 2018, a bust of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius was discovered during conservation work, along with a small Ptolemaic sandstone sphinx.
What you're looking at here is a festival calendar. You know, the priests in the temples had to do the proper rituals at the proper times of year, and they had to keep track of the days of the year and what had to be done on the days of the year. And this is what they've got here. There are actually a few festival calendars here at Kom Ombo. And there were in ancient Egypt 3 seasons of 4 months each. There was the inundation season, Akhet. There was Peret, the growing season, and then there was Shemu, the harvest season. And many of the festivals were associated with the phases of agriculture, but also with the propitiation for certain gods. We have a very interesting scene here in the back of the temple. This was made between the reign of Marcus Aurelius and Macrinus, late 2nd, early 3rd century CE. And we have a depiction of the Roman emperor here kneeling before a god. Now, their heads are missing, so it's hard to know, but this is the hardware side of the temple rather than the Sobek side, so it was probably hardware, and that makes sense because he was in fact a god of medicine. And you see the Eye of Horus back here? The text here seemed to indicate that the emperor was holding eyes of Horus, one eye and another eye of Horus. The Eye of Horus, of course, heals. It's about basically how he heals the lands of Egypt, the 2 lands. And we have, along with the medical theme, an interesting depiction here of medical instruments, including surgical instruments. This is the earliest depiction we have in the ancient world of surgical instruments from the Roman period. And you could see scalpels and forceps and saws and sponges and bottles and things like that that they would have used in surgical practice.
By embracing their culture?
Yeah, I mean, it was a necessary component, but also, it's also propaganda for them, right? If you're on the temple here, this is going to command you some respect. You're going to be treated as if you were the king of Egypt, like a pharaoh, you know? The Greeks set the precedent for that when they came in and started. Alexander actually did. They made him a pharaoh, they put him on the walls, dressed as a pharaoh, then all the Ptolemies did it, and so the Romans just followed suit. Look at the size of these reliefs and how deep they go. Isn't this amazing? Huge, larger than life. Oh, look, they kind of messed up on the toes. AI, you can always tell.
Outside lies the Nileometer, where priests measured the flood. You may recall we have seen 2 other Nileometers at other temples in previous episodes, but this one might be the coolest. If you recall, this is where the priest would measure the Nile levels and predict how the harvest would be for the upcoming growing seasons. And there is also a Roman well. Then there are the crocodiles themselves. Catacombs at Kom Ombo yielded hundreds of mummified crocodiles, buried as sacred embodiments of Sobek. About 300 of these were recovered, and many can be seen today in the Crocodile Museum, which is next to the main temple. Kom Ombo stands today as a monument not only to Ptolemaic ambition, but also to the long, layered history of this stretch of the Nile, from prehistoric settlers to Roman emperors. Generation after generation recognized this site as a place of power, prosperity, and divine presence. On your way to Kom Ombo, if you decide to come, gather the addresses of your friends and family and bring them along, because the post office is just down the street, and it's a perfect opportunity to send a postcard to a loved one or friend, or frenemy. Wish you were here, ha ha. We don't judge. But Kom Ombo is only part of the story. Next time, we follow the river north to Jebel el Sisila, where the sandstone quarries that built temples just like this one still scar the cliffs. And from there, we reach Edfu, the great temple of Horus, one of the best preserved sanctuaries in all of Egypt. From raw rock to finished masterpiece, we'll examine the very bones of Egyptian architecture.